The way that this debate was described to me is that Pearl Davis could be described as maybe like a baby fawn. You guys know like like a baby deer. I love deer. I think they're adorable. So she would be like a baby fawn, and Anna Kasparian would be like I would say maybe like some sort of like hydraulic press that the baby fawn is taped to. It was not good. It was not good. Baby fawn, Honda, or Ford F-150. Okay, maybe instead of the hydraulic press, because it was not good. The problem is these craters keep getting made in some factory. It feels like that. It feels like they're getting made in some factory where they're trained on how to have basically pre-scripted back and forth with people as if they were on a podcast. I don't know if you see these YouTube shorts or TikTok shorts all the time, but it's like people are pretending to be on a podcast. I don't know if you've seen this, where someone would be like, so you guys ever heard of John Baptiste? John Baptiste, who is that? Well, it's John Baptiste. Of course you've heard of John Baptiste. No, give me the breakdown on who John Baptiste is. And it's just like back and forth, and you sit there and it feels so antisocial. It feels so lonely and sad. Whatever factory makes those content creators is the same factory that created Pearl Davis. Because Pearl Davis essentially got her fame by having a podcast where they would bring people on larger than her, bring the audience to her, and then would perform in a way to make their audience happy. Say things about where a woman's place is and around society of an extreme conservative tilt in order to make them happy. What exactly they were saying in any individual moment doesn't really matter all that much. It just seemed like they would say whatever would make them most happy in that moment. And when you see those types of hints, when you see somebody always just kind of playing to the crowd, you get a little worried when you hear that they've agreed to a debate like this, because I don't think Pearl Davis has the depth of knowledge to debate literally anything. Foreign policy, healthcare, economics, social issues. I mean, social issues probably is where she'd have the easiest, because that's seems to get a lot of clicks and she spent a lot of time with that. But you can choose the issue, and I don't think that it's somewhere she has either a depth of knowledge, and she also certainly doesn't have the skill to actually go back and forth with competition who has not been set there to help her succeed. I don't know what firm created Davis, but if they made the decision to put her in a debate environment like this against a live opponent, I'll say that about Anna Kasparian. A live opponent in Anna Kasparian was a terrible, god-awful, very no good idea. Because I saw some clips of this, and I heard that description of it being like basically a deer getting hit on the highway by a Ford F-150. And the one clip I saw seemed to indicate that. But I'm not going to skip around. We're not just going to look at one or two clips on in context. We'll watch as much of this as we can stomach before I make the decision that I think that's enough Pearl for one day.
Ladies and gentlemen, this debate, our main card, has a little bit of a different format than what we did previously. We're going to have the opening statements for both of you. Those will be 5 minutes apiece. Then you'll each get 10 minutes to kind of do an interrogatory of the other. That will go back and forth. And then after that, we'll go into open debate. As you saw with some of the other debates earlier, we try to let the other person answer. I'll try to jump in as I can, but for the most part, I want you all to mix it up, all right? Have fun with it.
Sounds good.
And who was first?
I'm first.
I thought so. Anna, take it away. We got 5 minutes.
In a May 2024 appearance on Tim Pool's Culture War podcast, my opponent, Pearl Davis, declared that women aren't really doing much. We're not having kids. We're not really contributing to the economy when you look at output. In fact, she uses this ridiculous assertion to argue that women should not have the right to vote. While it's true the birth rate has declined, and we'll revisit that in a bit, women account for 47%.
By the way, I don't think women should have the right to vote either, but when I say that, I only mean one woman, and that's Pearl Davis. Everyone else, of course, but just Pearl Davis.
Of the American workforce. The Council of Economic Advisors found that—
What a fucking stupid thing. Like, it's just give me attention. It's just, I don't want women to vote. I don't want this group of people. It's just give me attention. It's give me attention. I'm an attention whore. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. I can dance for those who would hate me for what's between my legs, right? It's just sad, the idea of coming out. I don't think women should vote. Why are we listening to you then? You're a woman. If you come out and tell me women's opinions are not valuable, they shouldn't be voting, and you're doing this in order to get like the Nick Fuentes type audience to come over to you and clap like seals, why should I listen to you? If you're the last if what you're saying is true, then you're the last person I should listen to on any number of issues. Why do you have a platform? If anything, a woman having an influential podcast, if what she's saying is true, would be more harmful than any woman voting, because the amount of impact that could have on other people voting is much more immense, because she has like hundreds of thousands of people who, well, used to have hundreds of thousands of people that would tune into her show. So this is something like, oh, no. They don't get rights. They shouldn't have influence, but I'm the woman who should have it. She wants to hoard all that influence and power for herself as the exclusive correct woman. But all the other women, don't listen to them. Those are the liberal hissies that have destroyed this country and voted in the Obamas.
That women have contributed a substantial portion of the U.S. economic growth since 1970, which wouldn't have been made possible without the feminist movement. By 2017, women were responsible for nearly 40% of total gross domestic product, amounting to a whopping $7.6 trillion. Of course, that figure doesn't include the trillions of dollars in unpaid labor women do every year, tending to the household, raising children, and caring for ailing parents. And when it comes to certain sectors of our economy, women are a dominant and indispensable force, like in the healthcare industry, where they make up nearly—
If you took out women from the workforce and you took them away from nursing, our hospitals would simply not function. You would have to shut a majority of hospitals down, and we would simply not have enough nurses. And when I say not have enough nurses, I mean 80 to 90% of our nurses would be gone.
80% of workers, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
I just threw 80 to 90% out there, okay? I'm not saying I'm a magic calculator, but it's not impossible.
That's 16.4 million women. When it comes to education, in 1960, women earned less than 35% of all bachelor's degrees. Today, they earn roughly 58% of all bachelor's degrees, which Pearl herself benefited from after graduating from Elmhurst University. Women also earn over 60% of master's degrees. I hope to hear Pearl explain how a more educated and skilled population somehow translates to cultural decline, especially as we compete with China in this increasingly multipolar world. The modern feminist movement also had a major impact on decreasing domestic violence, and that's according to the U.S. Department of Justice. Rates of intimate partner violence decreased by more than 60% from 1994 to 2010.
Now, this is sad, but it's also true that it is likely also tied to the cultural normalcy of divorce, making it easier for people to leave relationships that otherwise they would have felt trapped inside. While there, of course, are, the conservatives talk often about the cultural negatives of that normalcy. And of course, you can talk about trying to make healthier marriages in the first place instead of unhealthy marriages that you want to divorce from and try to jump out of and escape. You're trying to escape a relationship. It's not a good relationship. But that is one of the reasons, that it is easier and culturally more accepted now to leave, especially for a reason like that.
And that's thanks to protective order statutes and funding for shelters beginning in the 1970s and 80s. Not only did the two-income household become more financially resilient, especially during economic downturns, women gained the ability to leave abusive relationships, an outcome correlated with improved child health and educational attainment. A culture that protects people from violence is not one that's indicative of cultural decline. Pearl herself has benefited greatly from the feminist movement, thanks to Title IX in 1972, signed by Nixon, of course. Sex-based discrimination in any school program or activity that receives federal funding is prohibited. Pearl herself had a rather impressive record playing for Elmhurst University's volleyball team, having earned all conference honors as a senior. She later pursued professional volleyball in London. She could have stayed in the United States and served in her role as a traditional woman, but she didn't. And she could have been the traditional chaste woman living out her dream of everything women were supposed to do before feminism, but she is neither traditional nor chaste by her own admission. While feminists would have no problem with her personal choices, she has made a career bashing women for theirs. Critics often argue that modern feminism has weakened families and resulted in a lower birth rate. They tend to dismiss empirical evidence demonstrating the insidious impact of the internet, social media on modern relationships.
Another weird thing, there are some studies that show that increased video game access was also something that decreased domestic violence. I saw somebody in chat also bring it up earlier. I've seen that before. I don't know if that's true. One study doesn't necessarily prove that it's true. It's just something to look at. But the idea of more distractions in the household, like I wonder if it's just, if that is true, if it's like a distraction thing, like if Rubik's Cubes got really popular for a year, if it would have decreased it by like a percentage point or something. I don't know.
They also brush economic instability under the rug, despite young people citing their personal finances as the main reason why they're holding off on marriage in the first place. In lieu of discussing those factors, Pearl spends much of her time discouraging men from getting married in the first place. During her debate with Trent Horn, she declared that men are better off shacking up without ever getting married. Her reasoning? Women are too fat and STD infected.
25%, that's a lot.
You did say that. She didn't stop to think about how they contracted the STDs in the first place.
Boring.
Data from the National Library of Medicine show that modern men are just as promiscuous as modern women. Men and women are in bad shape, and in the United States, we can discuss why, but feminism is not the reason.
Very good. Thank you.
That was a really strong opening from Anna. I think these types of environments is probably where Anna does some of her best work. I don't really listen to Anna, a lot of her like news commentary anymore. I remember just hearing like a few bad takes on Ukraine, like giving them Patriots. Why are we giving them Patriots? We're giving the Patriots to help the defense companies. That's why we're giving them Patriots. It's like, okay, that's why we're giving Ukraine Patriots. And the only reason we're giving Ukraine Patriots, the Patriots don't even work. Just saying stuff that is like clearly ignorant. But like, you cannot deny Anna is fucking vicious in these things. It's like sometimes when I watch her in these things, it feels like a curb stomping, but this one is something different.
Nice job. Okay, Pearl, we got 5 minutes. You're going to be on the clock, and let's go.
Most debaters and commentators are elitists who tell average Americans from their ivory towers what to think and how to feel. My answer to this question not only comes from covering current events and researching the facts, data, and statistics, but also in my professional experience interviewing over 1,000 people in America and Western nations. Feminism has given women power, and power corrupts. And that's what's happening. Feminism is robbing men of their disposable income and their prime earning years. Feminism has empowered women.
By the way, my boyfriend was in the room. They were looking at me. They handed me like a drink. I needed a drink or something. And then they just heard, feminism is ruining men's disposable income. And they proceeded to die and leave the room.
It has empowered women to be sexually promiscuous. Feminists say that they fought for women to not subject themselves to the approval of men. Why then are 5 to 10% of women between the...
By the way, I'm actually, if you guys want to know why I like big, tall, people with schlongs and not, and you know, that's the type of people I date. Pearl convinced me. Pearl just kept bashing women so much. I was like, okay, guy, fine, okay, chill. I'll stay away. You've warned me of them like they're poisoned frogs of some sort. I'll stay away. She guided me to the true path.
Ages of 18 to 25 on OnlyFans or other prostitution websites.
You're gay, not bi. I'm bi. Bye.
There are more online prostitutes in America than female Walmart employees. 1 of 3 women will catch an STD at some point in their life.
What a random statistic. There are more female prostitutes than there are Walmart employees. Why Walmart employees, like female Walmart employees, what she's trying to get at. Why we use that as the standard, not like nurses or something like that. It had to, I'm sure she like looked at a list and then stopped right where the dividing line was. Like, Walmart employees. There are more prostitutes in this country than those working at Rita's ice cream dispensaries for Italian ice cream. There are more prostitutes in this country. Like, the sexual promiscuity that are sold by prostitutes are bought by who? Who is keeping prostitutes in business? Who is keeping the longest and oldest profession in the world running? Okay, I'll tell you, it's not other prostitutes.
Lifetime, 90% will catch HPV, which is incurable. Feminism has empowered women to abort 1/8 of the world population and 1/3 of Gen Z. Feminists have been so empowered to commit paternity fraud. Paternity fraud is unpunished in any state in the USA or any country in the West. If done correctly, a man will have to pay for a child he was fooled into believing was his until that child reaches maturity. In some states, that man will also have to pay for that kid's college. That is slavery and is forbidden under the 13th Amendment. 1/3 of paternity tests are negative by the American Association of Blood Banks.
Under that logic, taxes are slavery. Under the idea that having to pay, look, they think they don't know who the parent is. They need some income to support the child. You're the parental figure. They choose. This is the outcome that the state has chosen is the best outcome when there's no good outcome because the daddy's gone. Does that kid just have to starve alone? This is what society has chosen. It's not slavery against the 13th Amendment. You could say that it's not a good system, that we need to figure out something else. We need to figure out something that's more supportive, but it's not slavery. Again, it's never just like, oh, you know, I think some men maybe are better outside of marriage. It has to be, don't get married because women are too fat and full of STDs. It has to be something like that because otherwise who's going to click on her video for the mid takes?
Feminism has empowered women to rob men of their time, their resources, their reputation, their children, and in the most extreme cases, their lives. They do this through child support.
I can't tell if they're cheering for men losing their lives to feminism or for Pearl. And knowing the type of people that are typically in these crowds, having been to events like this before, it could honestly be either.
Support, alimony, false allegations, and paternity fraud. How many people in this arena have a brother, a father, an uncle, or a friend who has gone through this meat grinder? Anna has been on the air for 15 years and is completely oblivious to these issues. It's a silent genocide of the lives of millions of men. Standing on the sidelines of the arena, I have 33-year combat veteran Terrence Popp.
Genocide? The feminist holocaust of the man? Like, again, she has to, if you're in a debate like this, it's one thing to say statements like this to get attention and like, try to, inspire your side, but you also have to dig a trench. You got to defend your position. And she's putting positions out there that are just indefensible. And she particularly does not have the skills to defend it. I mean, you can see her setting herself up for failure.
He served through 3 wars and was almost killed in 2. He got married, had 2 children, and served in the United States Army. Terrence Popp was deployed to Iraq in 2004, and as a member of the airborne infantry, he was wounded by a roadside bomb and suffered a TBI and a stroke from the blast. He was evacuated out of the country, and it took over 2 years until he had recovered. While he was recovering, his wife was plotting to divorce him. His wife murdered his 6-year-old chocolate lab out of spite because he filed for divorce first. When he confronted her, the response he got was, "I told you I did not want you living here." At this point, he was forced to leave the marital home and live out of his car. The divorce took away his home.
Oh, is this going to be is this what she thought the debate would be? Like there'd be a story about a crazy woman who killed some guy's dog and tried to ruin his life. And then Anna will respond with an example of a man like beating a woman half to death. Then she'll respond with a guy getting stabbed. Then she'll respond with a woman actually getting beaten to death. And then we'll just keep escalating. Is this the point? Is this where we're at?
His children and left him penniless and saddled with a child support payment he could not afford. Terrence had to pay $144,000 over a 12-year period for a divorce that his wife was empowered by feminists to plan and execute. Terrence went into court to fight for 50-50 custody. Terrence was called a murderer and an assassin in open court and was given 96 hours a month with his children. 96 hours a month is not a father. While homeless, he spoke to many other men who would never get off the streets due to child support arrearages and penalties, and the men constantly getting arrested for unpaid child support. The disparage of losing his children and his home, and his PTSD and constant pain from his wounds, he became suicidal. While at his post in 2008, a former commander of his came to see him to secretly say his last goodbyes. The next day, Mr. Popp's former commander put on his dress blues and went to the Holy National Veterans Cemetery and blew his brains out. Terrence Popp was notified of the death and was shocked because he was planning to commit suicide in the exact same manner. So in effect, his former commander took the bullet that was meant for him. Terrence Popp decided he would not kill himself and has spent the last 20 years saving 576 men from suicide with comedy. If you look to the left of the stage, Terrence is holding the dog tags for every life that he has saved. Now, why am I telling you this? Shout out to Terrence, yeah. Now, why am I telling you this? Because
is this when the president makes an address and he gives like the State of the Union, they have guests and stuff. I don't know if I've ever seen at a debate having the State of the Union style guests.
men and American veterans are put in this position because of the empowerment that feminists like Anna have pushed for. There are millions of men that have died in this country from the political power that feminism pushes. Since 1970, an estimated 1.6 million men have committed suicide.
Time. Stop it.
If feminists cared about equality, why aren't they fighting for equality in divorce and family court as hard as they are fighting for abortion, working, or becoming sex workers? Thank you.
Okay, this is gonna be a heavy one. We're gonna go now to the opening interrogations. We have 10 minutes. Do we have that on the clock? Yeah, it's fading in right there. Okay, and take it away, 10 minutes.
Who's interrogating who?
Whoever wants to begin.
Aside from the specific anecdote that you shared, which of course is tragic, can you cite some actual studies that look at these statistics and back up what you say in regard to the outcomes of marriage and divorce in America?
41% of 109 rape cases reported to police in a Midwestern city were admitted to be false by complainants.
In one Midwestern city?
What did that, wait, the question was about marriage. The question was about like what she said about like getting married. And then she just responds with a statistic about false rape accusations, which are not related to the marriage. And if that's in a Midwestern city, like that's one city, one place, one city where these accusations are being made. That's again, unrelated to the, here we go.
And which Midwestern city was that?
You know, you can go from your ivory tower and
I'm
tell
not in an
people what
ivory
to
tower.
think
I'm
and
on
how
this
to
debate
feel.
stage interrogating your assertions, and you've only provided an anecdote.
Right.
Because if you look at the data, which I did, of course, you'll find that women are twice as likely to fall into poverty after divorce.
Right, because they can't stop
Alimony is
spending.
paid out in 10% of divorces. According to the Census Bureau, the average child support payment is $441 a month, and only 60%
Right, but how
of
much are
those
they
payments
making?
get paid out.
How much?
Women do not get child custody 90% of the time, as you have asserted before. In fact, 95% of custody cases are mutually agreed upon outside of the courtroom. Women get full custody 40% of the time. Men do get full custody 20% of the time. And 40% of the time, it's shared custody, which I think is the ideal situation, assuming that neither spouse is abusive.
And Pearl, excuse me, before you respond, if you could take your microphone out and hold it.
Pearl has just been half of Pearl's thing so far, performance so far has been that anecdote, and the other half has been, well, of course, and she did like throw out a few points. I don't know if we're gonna get through any of those points. But then the other half has just been her flipping through these papers. I don't know what she's looking for in there.
It would be easier to hear you.
Okay. Alimony and medical care and dental are not covered by that, so a lot of times it does go above 50%. Again, you can go through the facts, the data, and the statistics and manipulate them any way that you want.
It's not
But
manipulation.
There are
Those are the
1.6
stats.
million. There are 1.6 million men in this country. Men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide after a divorce.
Compared to women, what's the number for women?
It's lower.
Is Nick Shirley just a more mobile version of Pearl Davis? It's a question. Find that out with time.
Really? What is it? Comparative analysis is real difficult for you, isn't it?
Okay.
Go ahead, Pearl.
What's your next question?
You have asserted that men shouldn't get married, that instead they should
I didn't
shack
say
up.
that.
You did say that with
did
Trent
not say
Horn.
that.
Word for word, you said it makes more sense for them to shack up, live with a girlfriend instead of getting married. Do you think the advice that you give to men is the type of advice that will fulfill their lives? Because I'll tell you one thing, the best part of my life is my husband. I love my husband. He's my rock. He's my foundation. And no, my husband is number one. I love my career, but you know what my career did? When I met my husband, my career was already established. He, on the other hand, was couch surfing, he was in debt, and didn't know what he wanted to do with his life. I married him anyway. You want to know why? Because I had the economic freedom to marry for love, not for some Chad to take care of me.
How tall is he?
Oh, he's 6'1", about your height.
How many kids did you give him?
None, I don't want kids.
Let's not do shouting questions from there, please. Allow these two to debate each other.
Okay, what's your question?
You can feel the eagerness by the crowd to tear apart these people's lives.
I mean, you don't really have much to answer, so I don't know what else to ask you. Do you think you're helping men by discouraging them from entering fulfilling marriages?
What happens to men if they don't pay child support?
I mean,
What happens? What happens, Anna?
how many men do you think get
What
arrested?
happens to
I don't know
men
what the
when they
number
don't
is,
get-
but the
What
idea that
happens
there's
to
like a
men when
huge
they
number
don't-
of men getting arrested for not doing what they're supposed to do
15%.
and take care of their children, it's not a huge issue.
What happens to men when they don't
Really,
pay child support?
only
You
60%
gotta-
of
hold on,
child
hold on,
support
hold on a
payments
minute.
get paid out.
You gotta allow her to interrogate you, not them. You gotta stop yelling questions at her.
You can minimize men's problems all you want, but I don't think you understand how privileged of a position you're in.
In what way? How am I privileged?
Men are the ones that are on the hook for child support. Men are the ones that are on the hook for alimony. It's easy for you to tell men to just take the risk when you're not in that position.
So are you asserting
Earl Davis tells women to just close their legs. Why couldn't we just tell men to, like, tuck it, tuck it in your waistband?
Asserting that men shouldn't pay child support following a divorce. Do you believe that women should be financially responsible 100% after a divorce?
Feminists wanted to be equal. So I say be equal. If you guys want equality, 50-50 custody, no child support, no alimony, no special privileges.
Alimony is paid out in 10%
It doesn't
of
matter if you're
divorces.
part of the
It does
10%.
matter. It does matter because you make it seem like it's a widespread issue when it's only 10%.
The 10 years doctrine is a sexist law against men. That's sexist.
How is it sexist if a woman decided to forego a career, decided to be a stay-at-home mother, and the marriage doesn't work out, she has no job, she has no income, so you think it's unfair to get support from her ex-husband so she can raise the kids, so she can pay?
60% of kids under 5 have daycare. Daycare is an option now. You wanted to be men.
Do you know how much
Daycare costs more money. If she's a single mom without, that still costs money.
daycare costs?
You wanted to be men. Here you
Do you know how much daycare costs? Do you think it's free?
Let her answer.
A lot of things are expensive, Anna. I mean, men.
That's not an answer.
Women have 85% of consumer spending. Women spend money all the time. You spend money on hair dye, you spend money on Botox, you spend money.
You should think about it. I sure am.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I would actually, if I was the ref, I would take a point for low blow, like excessive cruelty. Oh my God. Jeez.
You spend money.
Anything? No, just, okay. Just gonna keep barreling forward. Should consider it.
All of the time.
Yep.
So you wanted to be men. Here it is. You're equal. Pay for daycare.
Equality means that when you have a child or children, you're both responsible. So the idea that the woman should take 100% of the costs on herself without any help from her husband or ex-husband is ridiculous. How is that fair?
Well, how is it fair that he doesn't get 50-50 custody?
Well, first of all, why are you asserting that they don't?
It's 50% his DNA. Why can't he have 50% custody? Where
there
has
was a
feminists
study.
been?
Let me answer your question, even though I should be interrogating you. I'll answer your question. Massive study out of Massachusetts that looked at 24,000 divorces. In those 25 divorces, they found that in only 8% of cases did men ask for custody. 8%.
Right, because the average American can't afford divorce fees, Anna.
But women can afford to raise the children by themselves without support from the ex-husband. How does that make sense?
What did you say? I didn't hear you. We were both talking.
You're complaining about the costs while simultaneously arguing that a woman should not get child support in order to raise the children that the former couple had together.
Are you guys equal or not? You want to be equal.
Equality means that you're both responsible for raising the children, and that includes the costs of raising the children.
So you should have equality, but not at the expense of men. 50-50 custody, 50-50, no child support, no alimony. That's equality. You don't.
Alimony makes sense if the woman was a stay-at-home mother and doesn't have a source of income. How else would she take care of the kids following a divorce?
By getting a job just like the men.
So you're saying that a woman who doesn't have recent job history is just going to willy-nilly enter the job force or workforce, I should say, and easily get hired? Do you guys care about this? So do you care about the children or not? Because you're making this about the poor husband, the poor ex-husband who doesn't want to pay the child support, doesn't want, to take on any of the responsibilities of having children in the first place. Why is it that you seem to have a problem with men carrying out their responsibilities, but when it comes to
men are dying to care about their responsibilities. Men are fighting to be a part of their kids' lives.
What's the empirical data on that?
I don't need data. How many people in here have had a family or a friend fight for their kid and not be able to get it? The reason that this happens, Anna, is because lawyers tell them not to fight because it's so expensive and they won't win.
What is that based on?
Based on me.
You have to provide, look, Pearl, I am open to be convinced, but I need more than anecdotes. I need more than vibes and feelings. Because we're talking about something serious here. We're talking about raising children. We're talking about the shared responsibility of raising children. That, of course, includes the cost.
90% of disputed custody goes to women. That's not equal.
90%, that's a totally made up statistic. Where are you citing that from?
All right, let's take a break there because our time actually ran out.
The time ran out before Anna asked that question. She didn't decide and respond. 90% of disputed cases go to women. I have no clue where that statistic comes up. I have a Google. I can just look it up. 90% disputed custody. I can believe that most of it goes to the women. 90%, quite a number. Do. What's a good source on this? I don't know what divorce.net is. I don't think I've ever been to divorce.net. Probably a very sad website. Custody agreements versus trial outcomes. The vast majority of divorcing parents, most studies say about 90%, reach a custody agreement rather than go to trial. In general, statistics about custody outcomes usually don't show the difference between what parents have. Reach a custody agreement. I found 90% reach a custody agreement. I'm trying to find the source. I'm finding things that are like referencing this number, but I'm trying to find like, where's the statistic? I mean, even like the AI result, AI overview says around 90%, but then it doesn't, we see the source. Emily Corden, attorney at law. It might be true, it might not be true. I'm finding stuff that says 90% of cases are reached outside of the courtroom. But I only find one link that's saying 90% women get child custody. And that's from Emily A. Cordo, attorney at law, but that's it.
Those opening interrogations are over. Let's take a moment here. You guys want to grab a sip of water? All right.
I definitely believe it's a majority, but I also don't expect it to be 50-50. I don't expect like men and women to be exactly the same, like when it comes to these like inclinations or like what would like evolutionarily what was designed for like carry. I just don't expect it to be 50-50. Men and women do have differences.
The next step is going to be 30 minutes. We're going to open it up. Again, open debate. I'd remind you guys, I know everyone's passionate about this. I get that, but we can't have multiple people debating at the same time, right? We've got one debater here. We got one debater here. Let's keep it here. All right? Let's put 30 minutes on the clock and let's begin the open debate. Pearl, I'll let you pick up here. Go ahead.
What happens to men?
She said it was disputed. 90% of disputed cases, when it goes to court and they fight over it, it goes like that, right? Because it looks like the statistics she's talking about is like just court decided custody cases, not necessarily like they had an adversarial decision where one fought the other person. I'm not finding anything like that.
And when they don't pay child support.
There are consequences for it, especially when there's a court order for them to carry out their responsibility and pay child support so that child can be raised.
And what happens?
Do you think there shouldn't be legal responsibilities or legal consequences if they fail to carry out a court order to, you know, take care of their kids?
I've interviewed men that have paid millions of dollars in child
Don't care about your
support
interviews. Anecdotal evidence doesn't matter. What I need is actual statistic, empirical evidence. They should pay their child support. $441
What happens?
is the average child support payment. $441 a month.
Yeah, that's for someone that makes $24,000 a year.
You just told me a woman can just go to work and take care of the kids totally by herself.
How does a guy live when he's paying $500 a month on $24,000 a year?
You think $500 a month is too much in child support? Do you know how much it costs to raise a child? Do you know how much childcare costs, for instance? I mean, that mother has to go to work, right? Where's the kid gonna stay while that mother is working? How is she gonna pay for what
happens to men when they don't
daycare?
pay child support?
Sorry, say that again?
What happens to men when they don't pay child support?
There are legal repercussions for not carrying out a court mandate to do something.
Do you think that fraud should be illegal?
Absolutely.
Okay. So why is it not illegal for women to fraud men on paternity? If a man does not find out he's the father over the age of 2, he is on the hook for child support for 18 years.
Well, the reason why is because at that point, the child will now not have a father, not have that income, and then the child is going to get punished for the mother's infidelity and the father's cluelessness about that infidelity, and then rage, which will be directed towards not only the woman, but will then be directed towards the child who they might see as not theirs anymore, XYZ. Is it up? So what is the court supposed to do? Is the court supposed to come in? We'll pay it. Our taxpayer dollars shall pay for the child. We shall subsidize the woman's action. We shall, or is it up to the man? Our society has decided that it's up to the man at that point, past the age of 2, to be there for that child, because there's no good outcome here. Somebody is gonna have to. Somebody's getting burnt somewhere.
I don't know what the law is when it comes to that, but it's wrong. If you're lying about paternity, that is wrong, and there should.
But of course, if somebody purposely tried to defraud somebody to pretend that it was their kid to get them on the hook and stuff like that, there should be consequences for that. But we also need to make sure that there's still a support structure for that child to fall in upon, because it's not their fault that their mother did that.
Be legal consequences
why
for
haven't
that.
feminists fought?
It's that simple.
Then why aren't feminists fighting for it, Anna?
Because feminists fight for women, obviously.
Right, that's my point, at the expense of men. You guys want to believe women at the expense of men. Why isn't Amber Heard in jail? Because of the Me Too movement. You guys push believing all rape victims, and now we have rape.
Amber Heard had to pay out a massive settlement.
Yeah, but why isn't she in jail?
You want her in jail?
Yes.
Well,
he ruined his
the penalties
life.
for defamation are what the court's decision is, right? You want people to go to prison for defamation?
He had to go to 2 different countries to clear his name. Why isn't she in jail? He lost millions of dollars.
Because defamation is not a criminal penalty. They're not going to throw you in prison for defamation.
To be clear, you think the penalty for defamation is prison time?
I think the penalty for a false accusation is that the woman should get the same time that he would have gotten if he was found guilty.
I think that's just kind of fishing for cheers, not really legislating. Not really trying to find an adequate penalty. There should be a penalty, but I don't think that they've accused me of murder. We could give them the chair. Oh, well, I guess you're getting the chair. I know eye for an eye is not, we don't need to go by it. We don't need to be symbolic about it. Penalties, but whatever.
Men don't go to prison for defamation.
And see, this is the problem with feminists. You want all these freedoms, but you won't actually be equal.
I do want equality.
No, if you wanted to be equal, you would fight for 50-50 child support, no alimony.
No alimony.
If you were a feminist, if you were really for equality, you would fight for these issues that I care about.
Alimony. So again, if a woman decided to forego working, decided to stay home to raise the children, and the marriage doesn't work out, she's got no income whatsoever, she doesn't deserve any alimony.
Women aren't even doing that. Number one, that's not even a women are not staying home with the kids. And number two, you have daycare.
A lot of women do these days, actually.
You have daycare.
The traditional women who want to stay home, they want to be traditional wives. And you trash them all the time, which I don't understand.
if feminists
It seems like
cared
women
about
can't do anything
equality,
right when it comes to you, right?
If
They're
feminists-
stay-at-home moms, they're traditional, they're...
Ask her question,
I
let her respond.
understand that you can personally attack me. That's
I'm not personally attacking you.
Okay.
These are things that you have said on the record multiple times.
But if you cared about equality, you would care about false accusations. You would
I do care about false accusations,
No, you
yep.
don't.
You don't know me? What, you don't know what I care about?
Look, all right. Let's talk about rights that men do not have. Men do not have the right to be enlisted in selective service. You know, we have 125K men who were drafted and buried overseas. Think about that over a second. You talk about the oppressions of the past, but how many men died in World War I and World War II and had no choice? And yet Anna complains about oppression. Men do not have the right to face their accuser in court when they have a false allegation and for personal protection orders that strips constitutional rights away from the man. Women go before a judge and say they don't feel safe, and more than likely a PP order will be issued. The man was not in court, had no say, has no defense, and does not get to face his accuser. That is done en masse, and many servicemen and first responders lose their...
Let me just throw out the draft thing. I don't want to get too into the details of this because I don't want to pause every 5 seconds. But we didn't draft women because we didn't think it was useful. It's really that simple. There were moments where we considered drafting women during the Second World War, particularly nurses, thinking that we could draft the nurses, put them in a medical role, and then we could take the skills that, you know, women have learned in the medical practice and turn it towards the medical necessities of America's national security priorities, of course, fighting the Germans and such. We considered it. We never ended up doing it. Other countries have done it, though. Ukraine, they did it. They drafted women who have medical experience because they have a usefulness on the battlefield. But men with stronger bones, they can carry more weapons to the front line. They can carry more munitions to the front line. It's more socially deemed that men are the protector, and so it's generally more accepted in societies that this is a role of the men to be a warrior, to be the fighter, etc. I mean, there's a bunch of reasons as to why men are considered the ones that get drafted. You could, if I would like to know, does Pearl think there shouldn't be a draft, or that women should also be included? Because I do not think that every woman, or even every man, but this is truer for a higher percentage of women, could serve in frontline service roles, just due to their level of fitness, due to their level of mental clearness in that type of situation. They concentrated. And their strength. That's not to say they all can't, but there's a reason. And for somebody to talk so much about like having to accept the biological role and the roles of men and women, and it's weird to hyper focus on this one, especially since in more recent times, again, if women have a useful skill, if anyone has a useful skill, really, you could get drafted.
Careers over this because it strips a man's Second Amendment rights away based on no evidence. Men do not have the right to raise their children. Divorce is no fault, but when it comes to child custody, it's always the man's fault. He loses his children to the system. 96 hours a month the father does not make. Men have longer prison sentences. Women get a third of the time for the same crime. Where are the feminists fighting for equality on that issue? There has been rampant discrimination.
There is probably something to the idea that men are sentenced for similar crimes at higher rates. The sympathy born towards a woman could have an effect in court. But this is also true for attractive people. This is also true not just for women. This is true for, like, if you're a pretty guy or a pretty woman, that could help you a lot in court. Like, you just being ugly or scary, you have like a face tattoo or something, like, and immediately that's probably going to count against you psychologically for the people deciding your case. But like, you know, those different psychological attributes don't just cut in the way of women. They cut in the way of attractive people. They cut in the way of people who can, you know, become presentable. That's why you always see in the court movies, we got to get him in a suit. We got to shave him up. You got to do whatever we can to make him look presentable. That's why, you know, Johnny Paycheck never had a chance. Making some old references.
Against better qualified men in hiring across multiple industries. Men pay more child support, and child support orders are not enforced at the same rates between men and women. Women are more likely
women pay
not
child
to
support.
pay
Fascinating.
and are prosecuted for non-payment at lower rates. Men cannot opt out of parenthood. Men have very few domestic violence shelters and are not taken seriously when they're domestic violence victims.
I agree on that. I do
White
agree
men
on
in
that.
particular are discriminated against when it comes to hiring and educational attainment.
True.
The Duluth model is a model that law enforcement, courts, and counselors use automatically that assumes men are the aggressor. The tender years doctrine is a guideline in divorce used to justify removing the father from the child's life. The only institutional sexism that exists is institutional sexism that discriminates against men in favor of women. Furthermore, U.S. courts do not require receipts to show how that money is spent by the custodial parent, unless there's overwhelming evidence of starvation, malnutrition, or severe child abuse. There are numerous reports of custodial
Is she actually just reading through all of her points right now? Did she just at one point just say screw it and just decided to like rapid fire them all?
The government to check receipts and see, like,
Let's let her respond to some of that.
hold on, no, let's understand something. You want government to be so big that you literally have the government looking at receipts to see what a mother is spending the money on? That's insane.
I want no child support and no alimony 50-50.
Yeah, because you're crazy and you don't live in reality.
I want equality. I'm more of a feminist than you, Anna. Because I say if you want to vote, be in selective service. Be on the front lines just like the men are.
Who do you think gives birth to and raises those soldiers?
What does that have to do with anything?
Because you assert that women...
Men fight for something. If you have any chance of winning, you have to have to fight for something, right? I mean, and a lot of men fight for their families back home. And the idea that they're putting themselves in danger so their families won't have to be the ones in danger motivates a lot of people being at the front. And I hear from a lot of people stories along the lines of like, I'm here so my family won't see the type of destruction that's in this neighborhood, in our neighborhood. I hear that a lot over in Ukraine. So as a purpose of function, yeah, like men have typically socially been the warriors, and due to their bone density, the physical attributes of men that put them more in shape on the general to be in military service roles. I mean, the idea that, well, the only way we can have feminism is if all women are serving in the same roles, even if we had a draft for women. And I think if we got into a national security place where we had to actually institute the draft, it could be something that could be considered, but we would want to do it for purposeful reasons, not just for the process. For equality's sake, we need to put women in this trench who can barely hold the ammunition they're carrying. For equality's sake, we need to take women and we need to put them in an assault role. Or no, you would take them towards whatever skill they have. If they know how to fly drones, they can be a drone pilot. If they have the physical attributes to carry munitions to the front, they can do that. If they have the skills from a history in nursing or the medical field, they can act as a medic. So you can find ways to draft women instead of just making it like, I don't know, some equality death cult for your army where, you know, women and men serve hand in hand. They're exactly the same in all ways. And let's pretend there's no differences socially for a society or physically. It's I know that's not what she believes. So that being the standard that she would put out there seems silly.
Shouldn't be allowed.
Like in Ukraine's case, Ukraine is a good example of a country engaging in the draft around women towards their national security priorities, while also understanding where most people view women societally in the country. Understanding that women with a medical history could be drafted to good use, while also having a general draft of all women could actually plummet morale, as many people were fighting so their wives are not in danger and now find out that their wife is guarding the trench 3 over, you know?
To vote because they're not all in mandatory military service.
I say be equal. You want to vote, do what the men do. Men are fined
Should women be included in combat?
Men
Should women be included in combat?
Yes.
Okay.
Do what the men do.
Fair.
Do what the men do.
Yeah, fair. Agreed. Next. Next? Nothing? Okay. I want...
She does look so uncomfortable. I'm gonna be honest. She's looked uncomfortable this whole debate, Pearl. She does not look like she really. I don't know, man. She doesn't look like she really wants to be there. She got a crowd there, like a rowdy crowd. But in those moments of silence between her points, like you can. It feels like you could, you really hear like a pin drop.
to know what your ideal woman is, because if you are a traditional conservative woman who's married, staying at home, raising kids, you trash them.
There's no such thing as a traditional woman. They cannot be traditional in 2025 because women will always have the leverage.
What does that mean? What does it mean that women will always have the leverage?
Women have child support to fall back on. Women have alimony. So
if somebody stays in the marriage, then they're a traditional woman. If somebody decides to take those roles and they're a traditional woman, you can go to many families in this country where they're traditional, where they're not women trying to defraud their husband out of alimony payments. She has taken a few cases of very mean women who have taken advantage of men in a position where they trusted them and have used that to apply it to all women in order to get the clicks of a bunch of bitter men on the internet. That's my clocking of it.
Oh, automatically.
10% of divorces end with alimony settlements.
And
10%.
And they go.
You just ignore the stats.
They
you
go
just move
from
on.
men to women. They go from men to women. Billions of dollars every year.
I thought you said earlier that women are paying alimony.
Billions of dollars of wealth every year is transferred from men to women. Mm-hmm.
Based on what? Where are you getting that information from? Are you just making it up?
Look, we have it. We're excited. We can get it to you at the end. You didn't want to submit. Where are your sources? You didn't want to submit them ahead of time. You did.
The Census Bureau, Bureau of Labor Statistics. I cited everything I mentioned.
Jamie, pull that shit up.
Pull it up. Pearl, the main thing I want people to understand, okay? Pearl's gonna trash women no matter what. That's fine.
I'm not trashing
But
them.
my biggest gripe with you is you're discouraging people from entering marriages.
I don't tell men what to do. Sell me on.
You advise men to avoid marriage.
Sell me on marriage. What do men get out of marriage?
That's sad. It's sad that people think that. It really is. You get a partner, you get a teammate, you get to build a life together, and it's beautiful. I feel like misery loves company in this situation.
No personal attacks.
And how would you know what you get out of marriage if you haven't experienced marriage in the first place? I'm not saying that as a personal attack. I really hope that Pearl meets the love of her life and gets married. It's not about that. But you trash it without really understanding what the benefits are.
Why do we have phrases like it's cheaper to keep her?
Pearl.
What is this? Like, she could be she's like a comment section. She feels less like a person debating and more like a comment section, going through the comments, then copy and pasting other people's comments or taking like other people's. You ever see those people that all they ever do is they take other people's stuff and repost it on social media and is basically I feel, but this is just all comments that I would have just read, like just scrolling under a tweet. This not a response. It's like she's talking about like the partnership that a marriage brings, and she's like, why do we have phrases like it's cheaper to keep her? Because some people have unhappy marriages.
Answer the question.
Divorce is expensive.
An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Why did the chicken cross the road, Pearl?
Expensive. And by the way, on purpose to discourage people from getting divorced in the first place.
Why do we have phrases like happy wife, happy life?
Because it's true. Same with happy husband.
Boo! Dude, they're so pissed in that crowd. There's some people in that room that have been burnt bad by their exes, man. Burnt bad by their exes. That's true. If your significant partner, it makes me happy to know my partner's happy. Is that strange?
And happy life. I don't want to come home to an angry husband.
But that's not a phrase.
Do you have any other like catchphrase or slogan you want to throw at me?
What do men get out of marriage?
He is always Santa Claus. It's a different song. Look, why? I don't understand what Pearl thought she'd get out of this. Honestly, I think this is what everyone else is doing, so she thinks this is what she has to do. It feels a little bit like that. This does not feel like her environment.
Marriage.
They get a partner.
That gains 25 pounds in the first 5 years.
Men get pretty fat too. I don't know if you've done a comparative analysis on that. They actually end up gaining more weight than their wives do. And who cares?
Men.
I mean, have a conversation with your partner. Encourage her. Be an adult.
How can men and women be equal?
Especially if she's giving you children.
How can men and women be equal when one
It's like slogan, women are fat, slogan. Women are whores, slogan.
is expected to die for the other?
I don't expect anyone to die for anyone else. I don't know what that even comes from.
Yeah, but men are willing to die for you every day. The men in the police force, the men in the military.
What about the women in the police force?
They're 10% and they cause so many problems.
Who cares what percentage women make up of the police force?
Yeah,
They're in the police force. My
can't-
sister-in-law's a cop, actually.
They can't do the same jobs. There's videos on the internet
see my
everywhere of
sister-in-law.
women getting their guns taken because they're not strong enough.
Are you just making things up?
There's also videos of fat cops tumbling over like Humpty Dumpty because they don't know how to like walk up a 30% fucking incline. There's plenty of people who are cops who couldn't pass the physical standards, but they're kept as cops because they either got in there 10 years ago when they could meet the standards, and then, the testosterone, crashed a little bit, or because they drastically need hire because they're understaffed.
Pearl, what are you doing? Like, seriously. The internet as a cop, actually. Women make up of the police force.
Yeah,
They're in the
they
police
can't-
force.
they
My
can't-
sister-in-law's a cop, actually.
They can't do the same jobs. There's videos on the internet
see my
everywhere of
sister-in-law.
women getting their guns taken because they're not strong enough.
Are you just making things up? Pearl, what are you doing? Like, seriously. Next question.
Do you realize how good you have it in this country?
Absolutely. Best country in the world.
And you get to live the life you live at the expense of men.
No, that's not true.
That is true.
Show me how.
Do you know how many men die every year? Just
Wow, I haven't thought about that, Pearl. Men do die every year. That's a good point. Sorry. I'm sorry. That was a brilliant pause. She actually stopped her sentence. That's not just me being mean. She actually just stopped.
every year.
Show me how.
Do you know how many men die every year? There are men that die every year to get you crab.
How many women die every year during childbirth?
Not many.
This country has the highest maternal mortality rate of any developed country, so a lot of women do die as a result of pregnancy and childbirth, yes. This is painful, man.
There's something I was told by someone, and I thought it really stuck with me about debate, and that is when your opponent doesn't know what to say, when you've gotten them into a point where they've never heard that before, they don't have a response for it, or you can see their brain racing and they can't find anything. The person could be going through brain fog, could be anything. Don't say anything. Be quiet. Let the silence hang. Just make it clear that you have asked a question, you have put something to them, and that silence is on them. It can't be that they said something and then you're quiet. You have to throw something to them, and watch as when they're about to serve back, they just freeze up. And the longer that silence holds, no matter who you're with Anna, you're with Pearl, no matter what side of the debate you on, everybody feels that anxiety. Everybody feels that social awkwardness as you're just like, God, say something, anything, just say something, words. And that was painful. Just like dead silence. I don't know if I've seen a debate with that much dead silence for that long. That I don't know if it's a record or something, but I can't think of any other debate off the top of my head where a good 25, 30 seconds, you're just standing there like, just kind of breathing in the mic, just kind of like looking around, trying to think of something to say. Weird. How long did it? Let me count.
As a result, rate of any developed country. So a lot of women do die as a result of pregnancy and childbirth, yes. This is painful, man. Do you have any other questions for me?
Not right now.
31 seconds. Not right now I have any other questions. She's got it. Pearl Davis, 2028.
All right. Should I move on? Like, what are we doing now?
Can I ask a couple questions?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, let's just jump in here. So why don't we do this? I'll ask you one and then I'll ask you one and we'll kind of go back and forth.
The only other debate I've ever watched that had me feeling this way is when I watched Lance and some compatriot that was debating the issue with him debate Lauren Southern. Just the dead silence is just waiting for somebody, please say something. The silence hurts more than anything you could say.
I kind of half jokingly said at the beginning, like Pearl had mentioned, I think you actually said it here too, that you believe you may be more of a feminist. Do you consider yourself to be a feminist, and how would you define that?
I don't consider myself to be a feminist, mainly because it's a loaded word, and there are certain outcomes from certain waves of feminism that I don't agree with, particularly minimizing the importance of men in society. I do think that there is, especially the third wave of feminism that's done that. I personally really value masculine men, and I don't appreciate feminists speaking on behalf of all women in regard to what women prefer. I think the Me Too movement started off as a legitimate grievance with women who were legitimately abused, and it devolved into something laughable and ridiculous, especially when, someone like Aziz Ansari gets accused of being like some sort of sexual predator when he clearly wasn't. So I just don't like how loaded that word is. What I actually genuinely want is equality among the sexes. I'm not looking for women to have an upper hand over men at all. But we need to be based in reality, and we need to look at the statistics and figure out what's really going on. If men are getting a raw deal as a result of divorces, then yeah, the laws need to change. And I genuinely thought prior to this debate that they were getting the raw end of the deal.
By the way, when she was talking about the deaths in crabbing, it depends on what type of crabbing you're doing. Like the type of crabbing that happens off the shores in Maryland, I mean, it's not impossible for somebody to die, but some of the most dangerous crabbing done in the United States is king crab fishing in Alaska and places like that, right? Where you can get something like 80 to 100 deaths or something, or like, I forget, but you get like, no, it's not 80 to 100. It's double digits though, low double digits. You can get an Alaskan like crabbing deaths. I don't know why she settled on crabbing when it's like, I don't know, like 14 people die in Alaska every year, something like that. 20 to 40, it's something like that. It's double digits, low double digits.
But as I researched this, I realized I was believing in outdated myths. So, yeah.
Pearl, let me ask you this. Do you believe and obviously you are citing a lot of anecdotal stories. I do think it's fair to point out every anecdotal story is someone's story, right? So they're not fake stories and they're not meaningless, obviously, to the people who live those realities. In a lot of cases, they're very painful. because of your platform, you speak to a lot of those people. How much is that informing where you're coming from in this debate is the real stories of people who have been hurt by this stuff?
I mean, I've interviewed 1,000 people. I interviewed a guy who had his kid transitioned and there was nothing he could do about it. I interviewed another guy and he spent $300,000 trying to get his kid back. He actually went overseas to Ukraine during the war, just trying to be in his kid's life. So yeah, it impacts it a lot.
I don't, she didn't really lay out the story how, I've never seen a child custody case decided upon who goes and fights outside of Pokrovsk. I don't know where this story, I know she should give a few more details. Maybe they're Ukrainian, I don't know.
I've interviewed so many men that want nothing more than to just be a dad and see their kid. They don't even care about the money. They just want to see their children. And if you ask Anna, it doesn't exist, but if you ask any man, like everybody knows somebody that it's happened to. And commentators can, they can try to minimize it. They can talk from their ivory towers and pretend it's not happening, but there's a genocide of millions of men that's going on in this country.
When you use
a genocide?
I was gonna say
1.6 million men commit suicide.
Self-inflicted genocide. I've never heard of such a thing. I'm gonna commit genocide against myself. I've never heard of such a thing. My God. Wow. The most efficient genocide ever. You're making a people so depressed, they all just do their killing of themselves for you. My God. How stupid, man. Really?
Have committed suicide since
I thought it was going to be abortion. I thought that was going to be your point. That's the classic. I remember going outside the Holocaust Museum in DC and seeing people have like anti-abortion stuff saying, stop the modern Holocaust. I remember being revolted by it at the time. That's the direction I expected her to go. I did not expect her to say that men's higher suicide rate is a genocide. Any issue that men face is the worst issue that has ever been faced. And any issue that is hurting men worse than women is it's atrocity. It's the worst possible way you could. It has to be genocide. It can't just be higher suicidality, because that doesn't sound as clickbaity, does it? Doesn't sound as rage baity.
1970.
But if a genocide's happening, then you must do everything possible to stop a genocide. I mean, you should stop people from offing themselves, but describing it as a genocide ain't doing anything to help that.
Similar rates of women also attempt suicide but fail because they usually don't resort to more violent means of ending their own lives. Right, so they'll take pills.
Why is that? Why is it that every time?
So would that mean that the sad fact is that women are just worse at genocide? Would that be just they're worse at self-inflicted genocide?
Time we bring up men, you have to bring up women.
Because we're doing a comparative analysis here. You can't just throw out statistics without comparing it to what the rates are among women.
What I'm pointing out is, I just pointed out that by 2050, more men will have committed suicide than all of the world wars combined. And your first response was, well, women commit suicide too.
Because it is a problem that is inflicting both sexes in this country. It is a tragedy and should be taken seriously rather than this weird sex war.
But it's not going to be taken seriously when you pretend it's not going on.
It's not going to be taken seriously either when you call it a genocide. And my first reaction is to roll my eyes and stop listening.
It is going on. Are you kidding me?
I don't talk about it. I attempted once when I was younger. At no point was I like, we must end at no point did I think that was genocide. That was completely self-inflicted. I did that to myself. Like other people do that to themselves. Genocide, you're just whittling down what the word genocide means. It makes it so I take nothing you say seriously.
I mean, how many of our soldiers, our veterans, come back to the United States after multiple deployments, do not get treatment or help with PTSD and other mental issues as a result of being deployed multiple times?
Right.
Like, that's a real problem. How come you don't talk about that?
Yeah, but
you blame it on marriage and divorce instead.
Right, because those soldiers come home to an empty house.
You think that divorce...
Oh, well, maybe if they got married and they weren't listening to Pearl Davis and told their girlfriend in high school, hey, how about we just how about you just wait for me in the apartment? Maybe it would have gone differently. Who knows?
There,
is the reason for most of these suicides.
Men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide after
How many more
divorce.
times likely are women to commit suicide after a divorce?
What about the women?
You don't know the number,
What
right?
about-
Because you
what
didn't even
about-
care to
what-
look into it.
What about the women, though? That's always what you go to. And that's kind of what I'm trying to point out is feminists don't care about.
Look, if I say in Maryland, we have 10 people die every year from car crashes, or car crashes are terrible. The country needs to pay attention to the crisis in our state of car crashes. A lot more than 10 people die, but this is an example. And then somebody in Virginia stands up and says 30 people die in Virginia. Oh, always whining about Virginia. Oh, what's happening in Northern Virginia? Oh, always whining. Why is everything about Virginia with you? You're expanding the data set to give people more aperture instead of just like focusing on one tree when there's an entire forest.
Care about male issues. They don't.
Like higher rates of suicide is a male issue. Calling it genocide makes it ridiculous. You're putting a big clown nose on the issue.
They do not care about equality because whenever you ask them for real equality,
Pearl, my point is that suicide is not just a male issue. It is a huge problem in this country. Women who try to end their own lives are less successful because, again, they're less likely to use a gun, for instance, or hang themselves. They'll take pills, it'll fail. It's just a tragic thing all around. But if you actually care about suicide rates, then you would want to know what's causing the suicide rates or the attempts at suicide.
Divorce.
What can we do as a society to help people to prevent that from happening? And you wouldn't make it specifically and solely an issue that inflicts one sex over the other.
Again, I mean, you're just proving my point because we talk about male issues, you keep bringing it back to the women.
I just want you to compare the stats you're spewing right now with something to compare it to.
Okay. Do you think that women should be on the front lines of the military like the men?
If they can pass the physical test necessary to do so, yeah.
Do you think women should be in selective service? Like the men?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and they should be on the front lines as infantrymen.
This is so stupid. Neither of these people have ever been anywhere near a war zone. Neither of these people are in a position to determine how useful or non-useful, like making it so every woman in America is like a step away, depending upon conflict or war, of being an infantry woman. Not an infantry man, infantry woman. I don't think either of these people are really ready to have that type of educated conversation. Would there be a usefulness to women being drafted? Yes. There's probably be more usefulness in specific areas for people with medical history. There would also be a usefulness in women staying back and taking jobs in military industry. There's a reason why Rosie the Riveter was such a central part of the American propaganda campaign to get women doing the factory jobs, building the tanks, building the ships, building the guns that their husbands would use to beat the Nazi and Japanese and Italian war machines. So, I mean, like the idea that, well, the only way we can have equality is by having all 330 million Americans in a trench. It just feels so far removed. Any functional, actual scenario.
They are physically capable of doing it, yes.
Okay, so no.
So you want to put people who aren't physically, I mean, obese men wouldn't be put on the front lines.
Do you think women should be jailed for false accusations?
Depends.
She really thinks she was like giggling after that. She thought she made like a good point.
On what the false accusations are. If
Just
she's
yes or
falsely
no?
accusing someone of rape, for
Just
instance,
yes or no?
yes.
Just okay. Thank you. I agree. Do you think that child custody should be 50-50?
As long as the court determines that both parents are capable of being caretakers, yes. In fact, that's the ideal situation.
Okay, so yes.
Yes.
All right, do you believe in alimony?
I believe in.
I mean, when somebody says that custody should be 50-50, ideally, but divorces are not usually ideal.
Alimony in specific cases where the woman decided to forego having a career and working, decided to stay home and raise the kids. In those cases, I believe she deserves alimony, yes.
But that's a privilege.
You're ridiculous. Anyway, next, move on.
You said it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous,
that it's a privilege to stay home with your
coming from a girl who grew up in an affluent situation with incredibly wealthy parents. You don't know anything about struggling economically or financially. So to tell a single mother who decided to stay home and raise her children instead of work that she doesn't deserve a penny to raise her kids after a divorce is the most privileged piece of shit thing to say.
This is the type of nagging that drives men to suicide.
Good. But I'm married and you're not, so.
How does she expect us to think she takes the issue seriously of men's suicide when she calls it a genocide and then jokes about it? On one hand, it's the worst issue. It's something you could compare to the Holocaust. On the other hand, he. What is her? I can't place her vibe, honestly.
Next.
Jesus Christ. I get it.
A little harder to debate someone who's not an OnlyFans girl, right? Never. I don't need to. Not that I'm judging.
It's why isn't paternity fraud illegal?
We've been over this already.
It's estimated 6% of men are fathering children that are not theirs.
I don't really believe your stats. Like, where are you getting that stat from?
The American Blood Bank Association. Are you happy?
Okay.
1/3 of
that's wrong.
paternity
And
tests.
yes, there should be consequences for that.
But there aren't.
Okay.
But there are. Where
and there should be. So we agree on that.
People finding out about infidelity through the blood bank is actually kind of funny to me. I don't know why, but it's just the idea of like, oh, we've gotten the whole family together to donate blood. Sir, I got some news for you. What? Me, my wife, and my 13 kids. What news do you have for me, my wife? Oh, 14 kids. You just popped out another. Me and my 14 kids. What's the news? Please tell us all together. We'll gather around the campfire.
Next.
Right, you can agree.
Brought my kids out to teach them about the good of giving back to the community. What's our reward today?
You haven't covered it. And that's my point, is you guys don't care about equality. You want freedom at the expense of men.
Okay, sure. Next.
Do you think that men should have the right to opt out of fatherhood, since women have the right to opt out of motherhood?
No. Put a condom on. You don't want to have children, put a condom on.
Or require him to wear a condom. That's equal.
Yeah.
That choice is equally irresponsible.
He's the one with the Johnson. He gets to decide what he does with it.
I think I'm more of a feminist than you.
Sure. Go great. Congratulations.
Pearl is fourth wave. You wouldn't understand.
Burns is an immoral, morally corrupt.
This is the longest 30 minutes of my life.
Somebody said, Dylan, is that clickbait? We don't need any more assassinations. The reason they're asking that is because currently the title of my debate is Pearl Davis killed during debate, but I meant more politically speaking. That's why I said killed and not murdered, because murdered would be criminal, but everything that happened on screen is somehow legal.
I'm going to interject again, if I can.
All right.
No, I was kidding. So one thing that I do think is happening is that there is a shift that is taking place in America, and I think you both have alluded to this a little bit. And so I'll ask Anna first if you would agree with this. Because you said that going into this debate, you thought a lot of these things were true.
Right.
And you started to see.
By the way, this is supposed to still be open debate period. Pearl simply ran out of things to say.
That maybe these things were not as true as you had believed. Do you believe that your previous belief was informed by nonsense, or the fact that states and legislatures and courts are changing what they're doing over the last few years in terms of alimony and parental time and that kind of thing?
I think that with more women participating in the workforce, it's hard to argue that, you know, women should get paid alimony when they have their own income. So yeah, I think that the culture has changed, the workforce has changed, and as a result of that, the courts weigh whether or not something like alimony makes sense. And look,
And relationship dynamics have changed. If a woman does not have to rely on a man for their financial support, you know, the whole dating dynamic has somewhat changed. Now the whole now that's not true in every instance, of course, but the dynamics do shift. Doesn't mean the shifting is evil, doesn't mean the shifting all has like only negative consequences, but there is a shift. And it is felt by young men, yeah. But it's not like that shifting back and trying to shift it back, trying to bring it back to a point in the past we cannot return to, is a fool's errand.
much like Pearl, I had heard the horror stories, and I was basing much of my worldview on situations like this based on anecdotes, basically. And so when you look at the statistics and the broader picture, you have a clearer idea of what's actually happening in the aftermath of a divorce.
Would you be willing to concede at least that maybe some of the reasons some of these things are shifting is because of people like Pearl and others who are drawing attention to these stories?
I have no reason to believe it's because of Pearl. Zero reason to believe it's because of Pearl. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. As for the question somebody just put in chat, can we address the fact this moderator is trash? To be fair, you have to have an incredibly high IQ to get Pearl. True, Starker, true. Her parents aren't just from an affluent family. Her parents are loaded, like 9 figures loaded. Damn. Can we address the moderator's trash? You let the audience interfere with the debate countless times and stayed silent as Pearl talks over Kasparian more often than when the reverse happened. And when the reverse happened, he did jump in a lot. I do feel like when you're in a debate and you watch Pearl give the type of performance that she gave, you have this inclination in you to at least give her the opportunities necessary to succeed. And he tried to give her all those necessary opportunities to make sure that the fireworks were not one-sided. But I mean, she took advantage maybe once, most of the time was unable to. So I think that, I don't know how much I would call that trash moderating. I would say that, you know, when you have a debate like this, there's sometimes it's only so much you can do. It's the debate itself. You can't make a bad debate a good debate. But not stopping, like I think he told the people to stop shouting questions once. But if it's the same person 2 or 3 times in a row, eventually you would be like, sir, you got to stop or we're going to have to eject you because we can't have the cat, blah, 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 blah. The fact that Anna had to keep going back and forth with the crowd, I don't know. But I do think that with the flames and open debate and the vibe that they're trying to give, a rowdy crowd is probably what they want. So I don't necessarily even think they view that as a negative. I do think that if it becomes Anna versus Pearl versus the crowd, that's a problem. But I don't know if that's necessarily a negative. Not the best moderator ever, that's for sure, though. But I don't particularly think it was a terrible performance.
It's because I think we could all agree that until recently, a lot of those stories were just stories you hear from other people, and it was not allowed in media at all. It was not discussed. Would you at least concede that?
I'm sure that there are advocates who have fought to maybe change the way these court cases play out, sure. I don't know about Pearl, though.
I understand. We're in the debates. You can't give too much credit. Pearl, in your experience,
not even about giving credit. It's just I don't know if she's really done anything.
In that you talk to, do you see a difference in terms of the age of those men, where maybe it's getting better for some? Because I would take it that some of the guys who were a little older and have been through this in the past, the courts are starting to recognize and realize that maybe it's not very fair.
No.
No?
No.
Why, and why do you believe that? You think the courts are completely
I mean,
oblivious?
There's men that write into my show every day just talking about how much they want to be fathers. So I hope it changes, but right now I would.
But that doesn't mean the court's necessarily. By the way, I'm sorry to say this, but the court deciding against you isn't always the court doing a bad job. I'm not saying that's the case with everybody's mailing into her show, but not everybody who wants to be very present in their child's life should be. I'm not saying that's in the majority of cases. I'm not even saying it's double digit. I'm just saying that, like, not everybody was necessarily made to be a father.
Say no.
Do you think it's fair that all of the young women who were preyed upon as minors by Jeffrey Epstein are now experiencing yet another administration engaging in a cover-up? Or was it the female's fault for being preyed upon by a disgusting pedophile? I'm just curious.
What kind of question is that?
I think it's a pretty straightforward one.
That has nothing to do with the topic.
No, it does, though, because you're talking about the unfairness of our court system, especially as it pertains to divorces. But we're talking about a guy who got a sweetheart deal after raping minor girls, and then even after that, multiple administrations, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter, engaged in a cover-up, ensuring that those victims would never get justice.
And this has to do with this.
I mean, you want to talk about the unfairness in the court system and how terrible it is for men. What about how terrible it is for women?
Look, that has nothing to do with anything.
It has a lot to do
I
with
think
what
in
we're
fairness,
talking about.
you gotta admit that's an anecdote too in comparison to the overall statistics.
It's a pretty big.
Man, you can see I moderated too many debates to not see what that moderator doing.
Big anecdote.
He's a big anecdote, but he's also an untouchable anecdote, right? He's
I don't
a
think it's
little different than
untouchable.
most-
I think
than
it's
most
super
people.
touchable.
So let's go back to, actually, hold on. We got 10 seconds, so we won't hold on. All right, here's what we're gonna do. We're actually going to take a break. We're gonna come off of the stage, and then we're gonna actually go up to the analysts and get their take on this first 30 minutes, all right?
Sounds
so take it away,
good.
Sam. Good job.
Does anybody know if there's anything past this point that's worth listening to? I'm having a problem. I don't want to be stuck here all day.
And then we're going to get into the
That keeps, sorry about that. What's your plan when men stop doing the dirty and dangerous jobs that keep society running?
if you could hold your mic.
I mean, looking at the unemployment rate right now, I think they'll do the job because people need jobs. I think they'll do the job, and what'll happen is those jobs will probably, if no one wants to do them, they'll pay more and more and more, and men will be rewarded for the risk that they are willing to take, and so will their families. I mean, that's why people talk about, hey, you don't have to go to college. Don't worry, you can become a contractor. You can become a plumber. You can do this. You can do that. The same thing is true about working in like the North Atlantic Sea or on an oil rig. You know, these people get paid pretty well, and if what you say is true, they'll only get paid even better as time goes on.
Sorry, I'll say it again.
Can you give me an example of which jobs you're referring to?
Logging, plumbing, crab fishing, oil rig.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, crab fishing again. That's like under. I don't want to be mean. It's under like 100 deaths a year. A crabber probably has a better chance of dying driving to the port where he would get on the boat than he does at sea. There's a decent chance. I'm not saying it is higher as a percentage of risk when it comes to the average population, but we're talking about like 12 to 20 deaths in like Alaska, maybe another dozen outside of Alaska every year. I just don't know why she's specifically set in on crabbing, and I do think crabbers should be paid well for that risk. But it's also not like these men didn't get into the job like unknowing of the stakes, unknowing what they're doing. Logging is notoriously dangerous due to not being able to always predict where the log is falling when you chop it down, and due to the falling branches, and due to how far you have to climb up, and a lot of times due to some of the older equipment that a lot of these men use.
Yeah.
Used to be a lot more dangerous, still is dangerous.
Those are dominated by men. They have the physical capacity to do it. Men and women are built differently.
What's your
So you're
plan
right.
when they stop?
I mean, we're going to have a problem.
Also, there's also a question about automation and how that'll affect those jobs, because if there's an amount of risk that these companies are taking, hiring men that they might have to pay out lump sums to their family if they die while doing their job, a lot of these companies might make the decision that it's a lot less risky to just have a bot do it. Sucks for those men. I hope they can all get gainful employment. I hope they can do the careers that they want to do. But it's something that I've thought about, that these companies would probably, once they can get that automated, they'll automate it away rather than accept the risk to somebody who has a life and, you know, a wife and kids or a husband or whoever waiting for them at home.
Are you suggesting that women should be forced to work on oil rigs and things like that?
What is your plan?
That's a
What do
ridiculous
men
question.
get out of doing those
I don't
jobs?
have a plan, Pearl, for a situation in
never
which
do.
men no longer do those jobs.
They never
Maybe you
do.
do it. I don't know.
What's your plan when men start walking away from marriage? What's your
What are these aren't questions. What's your plan for these things that won't happen? Men and women are getting married at lower rates and divorce is much higher. I mean, men and women are both doing that. When you say when men walk away from marriage, like, you mean the thing that's that's happening, right? What do you mean the plan? Do we institute a national marriage law? God, what is she even getting at?
plan?
So do men or women get a raw deal from marriage? Because you just said
What is your
men walking
plan?
away
What
from
is
marriage.
your
So
plan?
is he culpable for doing that?
What is your plan when men walk away from marriage?
Is he responsible for walking away from a
changing the
marriage?
topic. What is
or
your
is he
plan?
just never guilty of
My
anything?
point is you shit on men.
I don't shit on men. I love men.
Yet the very microphone you're using was built by men. The building was built by men. And there's no gratitude or appreciation. You just tell them they're not doing enough.
When did she say that? Who is she talking to? When did she say men are not doing enough?
Got me.
She was talking about alimony payments. She's talking about men who get women pregnant should have to pay for those kids. Like, that was her statement. I don't know what that had to do with the microphone that she built.
There's no gratitude or
But
appreciation.
whoever built.
You just tell them they're not doing enough.
Got me. You got me. Yep.
So what's your plan when men start walking away from society?
What do you mean by walking away from society?
What was that question? It just gets broader and broader. What do you do when men walk away from permanence? Once the non-existence, what is this? Like, she's like, what is she, a shaman?
Society.
When men stop doing the dangerous jobs, when men stop getting married, when men stop having kids.
To be quite
What
honest
is
with
your
you,
plan?
if American men decide they no longer want to do those jobs, very likely our government will import men from countries where they're willing to do those jobs. That's probably how it's
What's
going to
your
work
plan
out.
when they date American women and then decide to stop too?
What? This is just like this is just a joke for her. This is like just a big meme.
I'm not worried about that.
Of course you're not.
No. I never had any
The future
problems.
is not going to be great for feminists. You guys are going to get the equality that you're asking for. Men are not going to protect women in the streets. Men are going to stop signing up for the infrastructure jobs. The birth rate's going to keep falling, and the future is going to be bleak.
Yeah, well, once men no longer have to eat and they can sustain themselves off of bitter internet threads, then, then men can just check out of all jobs in society and be online neats forever, so they can spend all their time watching Pearl Davis videos.
Okay. Listen, I think men and women serve important roles in society. I think that you have a shallow understanding of what I believe, number one, but more importantly, what the dynamic is between men and women in modern society. you're under this weird impression that the anecdotal evidence that you cite is indicative of the outcome of all marriages. In reality, study after study shows that married
Half of
couples
marriages
tend
end in
to be
divorce.
happier than single individuals.
Right, they're happy before the divorce.
Divorce is terrible. Divorce
And the
means that
other
the
thing
marriage
is,
didn't work
yeah,
out. Obviously, they're not going to be happy in the middle of a divorce.
Like, correlation doesn't mean causation. People marry happy people and date happy people in general. You're attributing it to marriage, but you're not going to marry someone that's like a bit.
Okay.
You're right, Pearl.
You know, what's really interesting is
There's nothing better than at the end of one of these things, if somebody has to assert how right they are, it's never a good sign. It's like one of the most constant truisms of these debates. If somebody at the end has to assert how much they performed well, how good they are, how they won, and if it shows clear that it's a test in the ego and self-worth more than it is like even really a debate, that's when you know if somebody has like, they feel like they have to clean up after themselves. That's not a good sign.
if you look at marriage rates, which have dropped in the United States, not just in the United States, actually globally, you'll notice that the people who are less likely to get married happen to be those who are from a lower socioeconomic status.
Right, marriage is disappearing from the middle class. That's true.
From poor individuals, yes.
What's
Do
your point?
you wonder why?
Because women marry rich?
God, she's simple.
People forego marriage due to their own personal financial situation.
So women marry for money a lot.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going back to this.
Let me ask you something.
People don't feel like they can build a house and raise other kids and bring lives into this world if they don't have the means to support themselves. How the hell are they gonna have to support the means to support another person plus some kids?
Pearl,
Men.
would you be willing to marry a guy who's poor?
Men.
Because I married a guy who was in debt and loved the hell out of him. Best thing in my life. Would you marry a guy who is broke,
that's very
no
nice,
career,
Anna.
and in debt?
That's very nice, Anna.
Would you?
So I'm going back
Answer
to
the
topic.
question, would you marry a broke guy in debt?
All right, so we're going back to the
Would you?
topic.
Well, the moderator gonna do nothing to make her answer the question. Moderator is having fun staring though.
Would you?
All right, this is the nagging. This is the nagging again. Okay, so
I'm pushing you to
See, if she just doesn't want to answer a question, she could just default on the fact that she's debating a woman and remind everybody of that.
answer a question because you are judging women making a blanket statement of who they would be willing to marry, who they wouldn't be willing to marry. But you're not answering the question yourself. Would you be willing to marry a broke guy in debt?
Does your husband have to listen to
wouldn't,
this?
would you?
Does he have to listen to this?
Oh, he loves it.
All right,
Can't get enough of
can
it.
I go back
Do you
to the
not want to answer
question?
that? Why do you not want to answer that?
Thank you. My God. Okay, maybe I didn't give the mod a little enough credit here. Finally, at the end, he's heard that like he heard the police reports that there's a disturbance. He threw down the coffee cup and threw the cigarette in the ashtray and got to work.
Yeah, why not?
Just say no. I don't want to broke.
Love is love. Now back to the question. Men, 88% of the food. The power grid, 93% men. Transportation, 95% men.
Men are important in society.
Communications, 90% men. Material production.
What is she do? What is the purpose of this? Like Anna already established earlier on that she thought men were important. She acknowledged that like the physical differences and like frontline service. It's not like you're gonna be able to get her on like, what do you think men and women both can do exactly the same and equal percentage amounts? These types of you're not gonna get that from her. So I think it almost feels like she's just trying to build up like the debt that society owes men, as if to say, and that is why women should not vote, women should not participate in civil society, women should not be able to, you know, get alimony payments. But it's debating something and trying to assert something that's already was conceded like 20 minutes ago. I don't want to listen to this anymore. I don't think there's anything else left in value of this, honestly. So I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I honestly, I don't think this debate's gonna get any better. I don't think it's gonna. I think they're probably just gonna loop here. And I see closing statements, everything else. No, we're done. I think we're done. Like, it's just
78% men. Software, 80% men. Auto workers, 98% men. Carpenters, 98% men. Electricians, 98% men. If you remove the top male-dominated jobs from the economy, you would have no running cars, no housing, no electricity, no open machinery, no materials or...
I had no clue. Anna said, let's end the life of every breathing man.
Fabrics and no computers. There would be no buildings and no Amazon delivery.
I've never
What
once said
is
that
your
men
plan?
are not a very important
Feminist-
part of American
you want-
society.
You want men enslaved to women for nothing in return.
No, you're just making
That's
things
what you
up.
want.
I am offended by the fact that the same air I breathe is Pearl Davis's air. I am offended by the fact that at the same time that, you know, Betty White or Mr. Rogers or any amount of American icons breathed air, this was air that could have gone to them and somehow ended in Pearl Davis's lungs. If this is the way that she's going to waste everybody's time and poison the brain of a lot of young men who are bitter and give them no means to improve themselves, I'm done with her, okay? I'm going to go back to my enslavement to women.